So Kamala Harris urged Americans to put their differences aside when she accepted the Democratic nomination for president Thursday night. Now, the U.S. Vice President spoke in front of an energetic crowd in Chicago to close out the DNC. She leaned into her life story and middle-class upbringing during her speech, drawing a sharp contrast between herself and Donald Trump. Harris also emphasized
our nation with this election has a precious, fleeting opportunity to move past the bitterness, cynicism, and divisive battles of the past, a chance to chart a new way forward. I promise to be a president for all Americans. You can always trust me to put country above party and self.
Republican strategist Ryan Williams is in Nantucket, Massachusetts. Democratic strategist Caroline Hellman is in Los Angeles. Thank you to you both as we are talking about last night yet again. Caroline, do you believe her speech, took her momentum where it needs to go now, off the convention floor, right, and over to the ballot box, And if you think it will, how?
Well, I think Harris did exactly what she needed to do, which was define herself. And she did something really unusual. She spent a lot of time talking about her background, about being the child of two immigrant parents. And she used that to define who she is today. I would say this speech was beautifully written and delivered, exceeded my expectations. And I would imagine that, the sugar high is not worn off from Kamala Harris, and it will not after that rousing speech last night. I don't care what side of the political aisle you're on. You have to look at that and say it was short, to the point, defined her. She got her policies in. She redefined patriotism and freedom, which are typically buzzwords for Republicans. And now the hard work begins. She has to maintain this momentum, as you know, for another about 75 days until the election, and any misstep from this point on, because the time clock is so short, will have a bigger impact than they usually do in these campaigns.
Yeah, you're absolutely right about that. And the misstep there is key. Ryan, this is the day after for Donald Trump as well. I'm sure he's relieved. He just pocketed the RFK Jr. endorsement. Can it be a fresh start for him as well now that the campaign has been rebuilt in terms of the Democrats from the bottom up?
Yeah, we're past the conventions now. We're in almost the home stretch. Voting starts actually in about a month in places like Pennsylvania, where early voting starts. So he's got an opportunity now to really take on Harris. She's riding this honeymoon since she became the nominee of the party after Biden dropped out. There'll be more scrutiny on her now. She is going to have bad days at some point. That's inevitable. She's going to make mistakes. She'll have to do interviews. There'll be a debate coming up. He now to focus on her and deliver a message as to why she's the wrong person to lead the country. But that takes discipline, message discipline, which Donald Trump has not shown he has. So he's going to have to focus on her, on a clear message, contrasting the two candidates, and not go down rabbit holes, questioning her racial identity or attacking the Republican governor of Georgia, or all the dumb things he's done in the last several weeks since she got in the race.
Caroline, Ryan makes a good point in terms of saying that she is going to have to sit down for an interview. There have been no announcements yet. Why do you think the campaign has chosen not to do any of those so far and not even announce that one was coming, even though Vice President Harris did promise at least a sit-down interview by the end of the month?
It's hard to say for sure, but my guess would be that, she was taking this playbook from Donald Trump's efforts, which is to do big rallies. And we actually saw a lot of footage from those big rallies, high energy rallies at the DNC. And I'm wondering if maybe they were spending all of their time essentially grabbing video for the DNC. There's no doubt she'll sit down for interviews, but I think it's smart for her to curate her message early on, given that Donald Trump really does make a lot of personal attacks. Race, gender, sexism I think we're going to see a really ugly personal race from Donald Trump against Kamala Harris moving forward. So she curated it perfectly in terms of delivering the message. And I would assume what we'll see now is just an echo of all the policies she presented last night.
Ryan, curated is not the way many people would describe Donald Trump's campaigning. Having said that, we have seen in the past that it can be incredibly effective. He tends to just stick with his gut when he feels something isn't working. How much do you think he will continue, though, to lean into the concept that, look, this isn't a person that you can trust, and more importantly, as far as he's concerned, not a person that's tough enough to be the president?
Yeah, I think that's what he'll do. I think he'll try to hit her on issues like immigration, on some of her recent proposals, price controls for food, try to draw a sharp contrast, say she's not the right person to lead the country, to be in the world stage. But he'll do it in the way that Trump does it, which is bombastic. He'll probably say something that will be offensive. This is who Donald Trump is. He's not going to change. In the 75 days, he's been acting this way for 78 years. So we know what to expect from him, but he's going to have to really focus on kind of defining her and really driving up her negatives. She's had a very good launch to the campaign. She's in a good position. She does make errors, though. I mean, if this was a long campaign, I think she'd be a lot more vulnerable, but it's a short campaign. And I think they're going to try to run the days down and just hopefully she can win by being not Trump. I think that's what they're going to go for.
Yeah, quite a few days of campaigning before that all-important debate, September 10th, which I'm sure is something many people will be putting on their calendars. Caroline, Ryan, thanks so much. Have a great weekend. Appreciate it.